Hi Yuvraj, welcome to the Impact Show by Bizgurukul. How are you doing?
Thank you, Rohit. I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely well. How were you so good with following your passion and then excelling in it? And you were doing that along with your studies.
Yeah,
राइट तो
I
अभी
was.
आजकल प्रॉब्लम ये होती है सबको कि हम ऑलरेडी या तो हम जॉब कर रहे हैं हम कॉलेज में हैं उसके साथ पैशन कैसे परस्यू करें आई जस्ट वांट टू सम इट अप ओके सो दैट बिकम अ डजंट बिकम अ पजल क्वेश्चन सिंपली पुट लाइक पैशन में एक्सेल करने के लिए क्या चीजें हैं जो करनी चाहिए इंसान को जो आपने फॉलो की कि आपने उतने जल्दी अच्छा कर दिया
Again, there's many parts to this answer. Where do I start? I feel like one is that if you want to do all the things you love, you have to make a sacrifice somewhere. So in my personal case, I don't drink or smoke. I do not. I made sure that my habits are very clean and that my weekends are not wasted going out, like a lot of people in their mid-20s like to do.
I mean, how old are you? 60, 65 or something?
I just turned 25. Like,
oh my god! And you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't go out and partying, staying up late.
I don't mind going out to a party or dancing or something, but I don't really
too much intelligent. Yeah, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel that was an important decision in me optimizing. So when I was in my early 20s, I knew that I had a lot of hobbies, like music and sports and all that. So I thought about it and I said, what do I love more? Do I love going out once a week or twice a week with my friends and getting drunk? Or do I want to keep being able to do the things that I love for the years to come?
Right.
I always tell myself that do something that your future self will thank you for.
Lovely quotation.
But don't really let it scare you to the extent that you're always worried about the future and not enjoying the present. So it's about finding that fair balance where you are doing the things you love, not waiting for your mid-30s where you finally have succeeded and now you can go and have a sort of balanced life. I feel like you got to find that early on and then optimize along the way.
Okay, so very first thing is to first focus on the priority. I mean, decide the priority.
Yeah.
And then try to maintain a balance.
Yeah.
Right? Because
absolutely.
ek mein gaye to it won't be, fruitful completely.
Absolutely. And like you said, I'm doing a lot of things right now. I'm running a small venture of my own, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yes.
And I'm working in advertising as well. So it's about making space for everything in sort of an efficient way, right? And it's also a lot about hedging your risk. So I was not the guy who wanted to drop out of my job and plunge into a startup fully committed. I was scared myself. And a lot of people are when they want to go into a startup scenario, right? So I wanted to hedge my risks, and that's why I started in a sort of safe way where I was in my job and I was giving some time to my startup and giving it more attention as time was going by and as it was getting monetized.
Right.
So yeah, I wouldn't, since there are a lot of young people watching this, we hear a lot of generic advice which says follow your passion, have no plan B sometimes, but I'm not like that. I feel like we have to be real. We have, we have to sustain ourselves.
Take calculated risks.
You need to take a calculated risk, exactly. And I think in the long run, getting more information about how things are going based on that and based on the conditions that are changing around you, you can always adapt your attention and how much time you're devoting to what.
Right.
Rather than having taken a decision and then being stuck in it, you can sort of adapt along the way.
So there's one question that comes to my mind listening to your answer.
Yeah.
Is that, what happens? Sports, music, and some extracurricular activities, right?
Yeah.
These are regarded as time wasters. Okay, generally in school, or for the science people, who are studying into science, who want to crack the IIT and etc.
Yeah.
And even when you go into college or when you're doing something else, right? Maybe or even if you're into job, I've seen this mindset in our country.
Yeah.
कि अब वो तो क्या पुरानी कहावत ही पढ़ोगे लिखोगे and all वो वाली बनोगे नवाब and खराब and all that, right? तो क्या ऐसा कभी फेस करने को नहीं मिला या ऐसे लोगों के लिए आप क्या आंसर देना चाहोगे जो ये वाला माइंडसेट रखते हैं कि यार ये चीज़ों से टाइम वेस्ट होता है उससे अच्छा मैं कुछ एक्स्ट्रा पढ़ लूँ उससे अच्छा मैं कुछ और काम कर लूँ जिससे मेरा करियर आगे बन जाए
नहीं ये बहुत अच्छा सवाल है and I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that we make. Our country creates one of the most skillful people in their technical fields.
True.
Right?
True.
But the reason we fall short is that we're lacking all the other skills. It's the communication, it's the etiquette, it's the presentability, it's the cultural awareness that we
Right.
lack, which
Right.
is why sometimes MNCs don't want to hire Indians, and that sort of pulls us back.
Right.
So you may be a brilliant engineer, you may be a wizard, but you need some other skills for the world to, to accept you and appreciate you enough, and that's a little bit unfair in a way that even if you're a brilliant engineer or a technician or something, you need these other things to go along well with you.
Right.
But I feel like spare time activities, like what we consider waste of time, those are so important in giving you experience that you otherwise wouldn't have. I was at my boarding school. I would travel all around the country playing tennis in villages and in the rural areas of Haryana, Punjab, and I would meet people that I would have never met.
Right.
With music, it teaches you to appreciate different cultures, read about it. Again, it expands your worldview. It really gives you a lot of exposure, which is what, in the long run, it helps in developing your intelligence and your impact in the workplace, your vision for yourself and for society. So these things are actually perhaps even more important than just being good at algebra or being good at physics, or as we are often told to be focusing on.
True. Wow. Amazing answer. Amazing.
Thank you.
That was what I was looking for, because all through my life, I have seen, these people who have devoted their time, okay, or at least a share of their time into some different skills. They have fabulous leadership and interpersonal skills, right? They're really good at networking because they don't fear meeting new people.
Yeah.
Right? Because they've all through their life they've met them.
Yeah, that's very important in the workplace and going forward. It's some people even say that it's not about what you do, it's about who you know.
True.
Which
True, absolutely correct. Okay, so coming over to a little further in your life, like you started off with music, right? In 11th grade, you completed then. And how come you chose advertisement? Like, why did this transition happen? What was the story like there?
Yeah, that was interesting and a difficult period for me. It was a bit confusing as well.
Okay.
I was very passionate about music, but when I was actually at a conservatory studying music, I realized that when it was my passion early on, and then when it became my work, I was finding it a little hard to deal with it because I would have to forcefully practice, forcefully be creative, and I realized that getting the degree is not very beneficial. Being good at music or being a very skillful musician is helpful, but the degree didn't make sense. So there were these 2-3 things on my mind. Also, some aspects of the lifestyle, like always being out late, performing, traveling. Those were also things that I discovered that maybe I prefer this as a passion for myself. It's not like I've completely quit. I still do concerts sometimes, so now it's something that's more on the side, with something that I still truly love because I teach my students back home. And then I came back and I thought about what would really suit me, considering that I was fond of writing and generally the creative fields. And so immediately after that, I did a degree in economics, politics, and philosophy. And I think that was one way to keep my parents a little happy that I would eventually get employed. So that was kind of
parents ne bola ek professional degree kar lo.
Just as a safety net.
Okay.
Unki khushi ke liye bhi, and for my security as well. It's not like I thought it was foolish to do it or that I hated it. So I did that degree, and then after that I was at that phase where I needed to decide, right, where my career is going to go. And then I was lucky enough to get good advice at different points in my life from different people. So someone told me that, look, you're a creative guy, but you're not the most disciplined sometimes. You can be lazy, you can be not so conscientious. So you need a structure around you where your creativity can flourish. You need some imposed sort of discipline. Not like advertising is a disciplined profession, but and then we thought about it and realized that, okay, advertising is somewhere where I can be creative. I write for television ads and, for radio ads and print ads and mainstream, mainline advertising. And I later also got into digital, but I felt like that was a good way for me to explore the corporate professional space with something that I know I would not hate it. I didn't know that I would love it, but once I was there, I realized that the people were like-minded, that it did play to my strengths, like I mentioned, right? That a career should be playing to your individual strengths, that if you are really good at coming up with new ideas and you're not very good at making Excel sheets and submitting them at 10:59 a.m. every day, then do not become a consultant or an accountant, because you're going to be suffering and you're not going to be happy with your daily life and your
True.
work life, right?
True.
So what I introspected on was my strengths and weaknesses, and I got a sense of who I was, and then I realized, okay, this is good for me, this is something I can tolerate. And I know that in our country, a lot of people are forced into professions without actually thinking about their individual temperament and who they are as, what their personality is like.
Right. So how to find this, what kind of personality or what are my strengths, right? It's easy to say do your SWOT analysis and all, right? But how to do it in a simple way?
I don't really know the answer to that, how do you find your strengths? I guess it depends on experience. It takes some time. Maybe I got there a little bit early because I was always a thinker, perhaps. But
or you maybe tried a lot of different things.
I did
right?
try a lot of different. Maybe for a lot of people that's the solution. Do a hidden trial, see what works for you. Make mistakes along the way, of course. That's inevitable. And mistakes are just lessons. If you don't, if you learn from them, then they're always beneficial.
Rightly said.
Yeah. So I didn't have a larger plan to, find my strengths and weaknesses, but I happened to stumble upon them on the way and try to take it from there.
Our CEO says the same thing. There is no failure or a negative thing. There is only success or there is feedback.
Yeah. Or there's a lesson.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lovely. So coming over to the question about advertising, right? Which you are expert in.
Yeah.
Is it?
You being generous by calling me an expert. I'm still very young. I'm still learning the ropes.
Oh, lovely. But the kind of credentials that you have, the kind of brands you're working with, I'm sure that's just being modest. Okay, so coming to advertising, see a lot of the audience that we have here, okay, they are into marketing, right? Not particularly advertising, but mainly into social media marketing and all, right? So, I just want to ask you in a very cliche way or a general way, okay? But I know the answer would be really, really beneficial for them. And it would be what tips would you like to give them to be an ace marketer?
The first thing you need to do to be able to become an ace marketer is to understand how the landscape works, right? How the history of advertising has changed in the last decade or so drastically. It's gone from being something that is extremely general, that you may see driving down a highway on a billboard,
right,
to being something so personalized that you see it based on your interests and your activities, sitting in your bedroom in the middle of the night scrolling on your phone, right?
Correct.
So now with all of this targeting that's been made possible because of social media, it's become something so specific to you that if you look at your Instagram explore page, it's almost like an extension of your hobbies. Like, for instance, my page is full of tennis videos or music or advertising. So it's become something completely different from what it was. So that's the first thing you need to understand, how you can affect the decisions of the people consuming the advertising content into the desired result that you're looking for. It's also about, I feel the most important thing is that you should be able to make people connect with your brand. It's not really about the nitty-gritties. It's just about when people believe in an idea, when they feel like they want to identify with a certain brand, right? And there are plenty of tutorials on the internet that you can watch, and you can watch something called the Golden Circle, where you should always begin with the why, then the what, then the how, and then the what, right? So that seems to be something I also believe in, because convincing communication does stem from a motivation that comes from the why, not about the what or the how, right? So in advertising, that's a good thing to follow, where you represent your brand's core values to your audiences in everything that you do.
Right.
And keep that consistent. It's good to think of a brand as a person. That's a bit cliche, and everybody says it's so capitalistic, but you kind of have to be consistent in your actions. You got to support your clients and be there for them in their times of need, to build that credibility, to build that familiarity and that likability. So it's about having a pulse of what the audience, of what that cultural sort of niche is looking for at that point.
So how to get to that? There is a lot of talk about studying the consumer behavior and then utilizing it for that. But I mean, how to get to that? How to catch that pulse? Which you're talking about.
Look, I'm someone who's never studied marketing, never done any theory, never probably. I mean, I've just done some reading at my own personal level, but the way I learned was talking to the people around me, right? So there was a time where I was working for a mass motorcycle brand, very, very popular in India. I won't name the company.
Of course.
And the product was between around 40 to 60,000 bucks. So it was a basic commuter's bike.
Right.
Right. How do you know what people in that segment are looking for if you don't know how they live and how they speak and what they do in their free time and what are their aspirations?
Right.
And once you understand who they are, only then can you sort of get into their head in the marketing sense and make them choose a scarcely differentiated product over another one, right? That's what it is. There's not much difference between two competitors at that price point. They're more or less the same.
Correct.
In terms of the hardware and the performance or whatever it may be.
Correct.
It's all about being able to have that little fondness in that split-second decision where someone says, oh, I connect with this brand and go for that instead.
So nothing can replace the groundwork. That's what you mean, right?
feel that.
To be there, get your hands dirty, talk to people, then only you'll be able to realize
Absolutely.
that.
Understand your market. Go beyond the obvious, the obvious data points that you tend to analyze things by. You tend to go to your insights and see how many were DM'd and you see how many the obvious sort of insights that we get by a computer. I think you need to grasp the human element a little bit more to sort of make marketing effective and also to make it more enjoyable.
Right. So one question which comes here, whenever we talk about creativity or marketing, there's always this phrase out of the box, right? So how to think out of a box?
I don't really believe in out of the box all the time.
Okay.
There'll be a lot of scenarios where out of the box will not work.
You need to go the conventional way at that time.
Perhaps you need to find the balance, but there's a lot of times where if you're too different, people will not like it. If you're too similar, people again will not like it. So you can't do something that's completely absurd in every scenario. There are some moments where the path for something extraordinary to happen is paved, and you can do some completely unforgettable marketing campaign or an activation campaign. But this whole out of the box thing, I think it's overrated. I think stereotypes do sell to an extent. I also do think that stereotypes can be harmful because they're a bit archaic sometimes and regressive in society. But some stereotypes don't have a negative connotation or a negative consequence that comes with them.
Right.
And that can really help you. And a lot of stereotypes are so popular and still pervade society because they are true to an extent. So do think out of the box when it's required, but don't keep telling yourself all day long that I want to think out of the box. It's not going to happen. You have to let it flow. You have to base it on the information that's coming in. Creativity isn't some mythical process where God leaves an idea into your head. It's about everything that's coming into you, how your brain subconsciously processes it with everything that it knows, and then kind of creates the best version of the output that it thinks will be optimal.
And for that, I believe you need to give your mind that space, okay, where you can think of different ideas and maybe,
Probably,
for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Coming to the next part, which is your own entrepreneurial venture, right? The Alma magazine.
Yeah.
So how did this idea come from?
It didn't come from any very inspired or deep thought. It was just that a lot of my friends were really fond of reading. They were fond of writing. And we were always talking about Western publications, be it the New Yorker, be it the Paris Review or McSweeney's and publications that are from Europe or America, basically.
Right.
And knowing that we come from such a large English-speaking nation, the largest circulation of an English newspaper anywhere in the world, which I believe is the Times of India.
True.
It used to hurt me that there's nothing homebred here that is globally respected in terms of literature. And I know that's a very ambitious thing to begin a magazine with, considering there's so many magazines out there. But that was what my vision was. So even today, we focus really completely on quality. We don't try to put out 25 pieces a month or try to put out content that is everywhere. Like I was joking with you earlier, like 7 resorts you should spend your weekend, and we're not really, going that direction.
Okay.
partly also because my model is not based on an advertising model, which
Really?
is something I did to preserve the sovereignty of my content.
Okay.
So it's based on a sub product that we have, which is a writing program, and that is what monetizes our model. And based on that, it gives me a lot of freedom to only publish content that I'm personally satisfied with, and I feel will add some artistic value as well to the discourse and fill that hole in the market where I felt like there was a gap, which is why I came up with this and actually persevered and try to go ahead with it. We always get ideas, but we only go forward on the ones where we feel like, okay, there's really something to it. And so far, it's been, touch wood, it's been so far so good.
How much time has it been when you started?
It's been less than 2 years.
Okay,
We
great.
have a fairly good readership across a lot of countries. We get a lot of inquiries as well. We have contributors who write for us from different parts of the world, which for me is a win in itself, right?
True,
Because
true.
I'm not looking to immediately get 1 million followers or something. I'm just trying to, make the few people that like to read my magazine. Even if 5 people are happy every day, that's enough for me. I don't really need anything larger than life.
No, it's good to have that clarity. Okay, I mean, there are a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people. Whenever they start a new venture, they're like, अब तो सब कुछ छा जाना है, एकदम से पूरा market खा लेना है. But being that contented so that you can deliver that quality, it's itself a very bold thing to do. I believe,
You have to pace yourself out. If you go too soon for financial success, you will be frustrated because you won't get it. And even if you get it, you'll probably squander it away. You'll make a mistake with all the money that you have.
Right.
So I think you get what you need and what you deserve at the right point, where you can actually use it to the fullest and guard it. Otherwise, you can. I am sure that you've heard that story in the Bible where there's a son that squanders everything, and then there's the responsible one. You kind of have to take that into account, right? So,
right. Yeah. So how many people manage this company? How many people are there in your team?
So we're just around 9 of us in the core team, and then with interns, it's around 13 or 14 people.
Okay, just 13 or 14 people.
Yeah.
And producing such kind of amazing content, and I love that. That's a lovely thing. And all they work remotely, right?
Yes, we have been working remotely. Everybody on the team is also doing something else, like maybe pursuing a master's degree or they're in another job. So we have this contract where we can accommodate for that as well. And
so how can you be such a cool entrepreneur and a cool boss? Like,
you'll have to ask my employees that to get an authentic.
Surely we'll do an interview with them then.
Am I a cool boss? I think I need to introspect and see if my team even likes me.
Okay. No, but it is like, they're fairly, I mean, such a small number of people, okay, who give this kind of freedom to the employees, right?
I think that's very important. That is very important because you have to let people grow individually within your entity. If you put them into boxes, then they will feel suffocated. So for all the people that are running a new venture, I would say let your employees find a niche in which they can flourish, right, within the company.
Right.
Let them adapt.
Let them discover their strengths, right?
Yeah, let them discover their strengths and let them find that role where they can put all their strengths together.
Cool.
Which is eventually going to really help the company, right? Because they will perform better and then you get a lot more out of them.
I wish entrepreneurs have that kind of insight and mindset. I truly wish.
Well, I'm sure a lot of them do and they will keep growing with that. Because imposing a role on people and stratifying it too much, it doesn't suit our temperaments.
Right.
It's
true. So what do you look for in a candidate while hiring?
That's a good question, and I think I am a little unconventional there.
Okay.
Because my team ranges from someone who's done a master's degree at Oxford University to someone who's just 18 years old in first year of college with no work experience, right? I just look for 2 or 3 things that I feel are absolutely essential for me. One is that they should be disciplined. The other is that they should have this hunger to learn.
Great.
And the third is they should have some sort of pedigree and intrinsic talent, if I may call it that. Aside from that, I've seen for myself within my firm that there's been an 18-year-old intern who's outperformed, let's say, 28-year-old with 10 years of work ex or 6-7 years of work ex. So
Okay.
that has led me to believe that your degree and your age is not indicative of your skill. Always, maybe it is indicative of real world experience or being worldly wise and those things. But in a field like this, where you have to be creative, you have to be solitary very often. In that case, there are some people that get so ahead so quickly, and there are other people that, despite trying and working really hard at it, also get there a little bit later. So I guess it's a little bit unfair in that respect. But yeah, I'm someone who really tries to judge people at solely. I mean, so in practical terms, when I'm doing an interview, how do I judge them? There's two really good ways to judge a person, I feel. The way they write is a very good insight into how they think, and the way they speak will make clear how sound their thoughts are and their thought processes, and you got to put them into situations where they have to improvise,
Right.
and that will help you understand where the sort of crux of their thinking will come out and show itself to you, and that's where you take the decision.
So it's more about the communication skills first, right? And then how do you, I mean, the real thing out of you comes out when you are given a situation where you need to improvise, because then your subconscious will speak up.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's not just about the communication skills. Maybe I said that wrong. It's the I don't care if your accent is different or your grammar is not perfect, maybe, but the communication is an insight into the process of logic and like how they evaluate a process. And I mean, I'm not able to explain it perfectly at this point, but you got to get an insight into the way they think and solve problems, basically.
Most important thing.
Yeah.
That's one thing out of a few things which I particularly look for. How good are they with solving problems? Because that's what they are here for, right?
Absolutely. In my case, they're here to also just be creative and have a ball and write the stories that they love and edit the stories that they love. But yeah, sometimes you do have to solve problems.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, so see, coming to one thing which we started off with in the beginning, that and also you mentioned it quite a few times in the whole conversation, that was mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Do you still commit mistakes, or what are the 2 or 3 mistakes which you feel, okay, which have created a huge impact, maybe in a negative sense, or if you want to share, or do share the positive ones, like the kind of positive impact that some mistakes have created, maybe a couple of them if you want to share.
Sure. I feel like, I mean, you asked me if I still make mistakes. Of course I do. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, even the CEO of Microsoft makes mistakes.
Everybody does,
right? What mistakes I made, I guess the good thing about me was I started making mistakes very early. And I started, there's that period where you make a mistake and then you suffer, right?
Right.
And in that suffering period is when you're thinking about it.
True.
So yeah, I started making mistakes maybe sometime into high school, seeing what is beneficial to me and seeing what is not. Like I said, today I want to do the things that my future self thanks me for.
Right.
But I was not always like that. So I did do a lot of stupid things. It could range from a bad decision related to your academic choices, or it could be maybe in your college days you bunked too many classes and then you felt like, oh, maybe I've wasted a good opportunity, right? So I made one of the mistakes I made, I feel, over the years repeatedly, was that I was always looking at the next step. What I had, I thought that I already have this, so I don't need to give it any attention. So like, for instance, once I was in college, I didn't give classes any attention. And then I started looking at what else I can do. Although that did allow me to do a lot of things, but I felt like I didn't make the most of what I had, Right. I could have learned a little bit more, perhaps. I could have done a little bit more in those various stages, rather than the moment I have something, looking at the next way to grow. I guess it's because I am a little ambitious and greedy in a way, but I feel you should also value what you have in the moment that you have it.
True.
There's no point, like you said, no point running after immediate financial success or like your next round of fundraising. You get things in place, optimize operations, make sure your team is happy, make sure you're on the right track and the foundations are set,
True.
And then maybe look at the next look at the
There's the
next
phase or the
junction,
things that comes
or
up.
the next
Right.
milestone. Yeah.
So when you were telling me about the mistakes and all, right, I was just trying to remember the kind of mistakes that I did in my maybe school or college or something, right? And even, of course, you're absolutely right. We do, commit a lot of mistakes, okay? And this was just to, make our audience realize that nobody is perfect. Because what happens is they start thinking, okay, that you need to be perfect, or all the successful entrepreneurs or somebody who's doing something better than them is perfect. He has an ideal life and all, and they have all sorts of challenges in their life.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was because of this reason that I pointed it out. Okay. So coming over, to almost the end of this conversation, is, what kind of message do you want to give to the audience, okay, who want to be good, right, and but they fear a lot of things, right? Maybe they're in school or they're in college or just at the starting of their career, but they have a lot of fears, right? Any message that you would like to give them so that it can just eases them out?
Yeah, sure. And before I do that, I'd like to answer what you said about putting people on a pedestal and thinking that they're perfect.
Right.
Nobody is perfect. Absolutely nobody. I mean, it may seem like that in the outside because you know so little of their life. You know just this public life of theirs when they're in interviews or they're on screen or they're being felicitated for their achievements. But that is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Everyone is really always continuing to discover themselves. I mean, people are late into their 50s and sometimes they say that I'm completely lost. I want to change careers. I don't know what I did my entire life. So for young 17 or 18 or 19 or your audience here, it's not worth putting that pressure on yourself, firstly. What I would say is, to an extent, fear is good because fear comes from your own best interest, right? You don't want something bad to happen to
True.
you or to your family. So good, be a little afraid of doing stupid things. And what I would say is, I mean, a lot of people that do really well in school, they're popular, they're like, head boys or like football captains and, the cool people, guys, you guys will, you know who you are, so you will understand who I'm talking about. There's a lot of people that kind of peak in high school, which I've seen that in my friend circle as well to an extent, that when I meet them, वो अभी भी अपने स्कूल की यादों में ही जी रहे हैं और वो वक्त बीत चुका है.
Okay.
And I feel like the same cool guys get into bad habits, they get complacent, and they don't really live up to their full potential. They forget about the things that made them succeed, like their discipline or their talent. So what I would say to people at that age is that build your life slowly and smartly, in the sense that you can take the good things you learned in school, the basics, the discipline, the ambition, the honesty, and build your life based on that. Think it every step, but don't overthink. Overthinking is a big problem as well, right? क्या होगा, मेरे से कुछ गलती तो नहीं हो जाएगी, maybe this is the wrong thing. You have to use your intellect to an extent to see, what the best choice at that point is,
Right.
but you can't put that huge burden on yourself. No one can be perfect in every decision that they make. So don't be over afraid and mortified of things, but take your time, be patient, don't be in a hurry to be successful. And
Right.
the last thing I would probably say, and a lot of people have said this, I think Steve Jobs or somebody as famous as him said it in some interviews, that the dots can only be joined backwards.
Oh, lovely. True.
So when you're in that moment, when you're at that grassroots level, you can't really see the big picture. And sometimes what you think was a disaster was one of the best things that could have happened to you.
Right.
When you look back upon that event or that decision, And that's what prepares you for the moments where you're actually in a position to run a big business, to be prepared, to be a good leader. So don't judge everything that's happening to you just based on that. When you're in it, it seems very overwhelming. It seems like the world is coming to an end.
True.
But 2 years later, you laugh about that.
Absolutely.
And we've seen that in college, right? We were so scared about our grades. We were crying about
the career, what will happen.
And now that we think about it, even if you didn't get that 95% in your ICSC,
right,
look at where people have gotten, they've come a long way, and that mark is so insignificant. Like, to me, at least, in my whole professional career and my own personal career as well, with my own startup, no one's ever asked me my grade. Nobody. Even for my post-graduation, it was not the most important thing that got me into college. It was everything else that I'd done, my work experience,
Correct.
perhaps my skills in an interview, the ability to have some belief in yourself, to be able to think clearly, to be able to solve problems. So at the end of the day, what matters is the impression you make when you meet someone, the skills you carry with you, the confidence you have with you. It's really not about a piece of paper. I mean, you tell me, would you hire someone with a Harvard degree who was completely like unable to put his skills to good use, or unable to impress you in an interview? Of course you wouldn't.
Of course not. Yes.
So yeah, my advice to everyone is just don't overthink, take it easy. Everything will fall into place. In the end, you gotta have faith that the best will happen to you.
I mean, give the time some time, right?
Yeah, give it
It'll all unfold in a proper way. It'll all fall in line, right?
Yeah, and you can't control everything. There's a lot of things out of your control. True. I do believe in luck. I do believe that you need the right people in the right place at the right time, and you got to make the most of it.
Wow, lovely. Just like we have the right person at the right time talking to the right kind of audience.
That's right. No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and
thank you
you've
so
been
much.
a very good interviewer and very patient.
Thank you so much for the time. I was listening to it because it all made sense, you know.
I hope so.
No, it did, you know. And I'm sure the audience will tell us in the comments, you know, what are their insights about the view. I mean, what kind of lessons did they learn? Because I'm sure each and every answer had a particular, message that even if one of them is followed by any person, okay, they can make a good mark. You know, in their career, they can grow really, really well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
It was lovely having you here. Same here, buddy.
Cheers.
And thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best for your future plans, because you're going to Amsterdam now to
Yes.
study masters.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely.
Take care.
And I can surely see in future a lot of records being broken by this guy called Yuvraj Nathani. All the very best for that.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.